What's going on, Soul Tribe? I salute the divinity in you, and welcome to my channel, Alchemist. Justin here, and bringing another little nugget to add to the Soul Tribe archive. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about Mars and Scorpio in the 7th house. I'm like, look at Mars trying to form relationships, being all aggressive. No, but when we talk about the nature of Mars, Mars is in ancient astrology was known as the lesser malefic. And so Mars does whip up some trouble. And Mars is, especially in a date chart, Mars is going to be one that you're going to want to look out for because that's going to be the hardest planet to work with. Whereas in a night chart, Mars is going to be the one that you can work more constructively with. But the nature of Mars can bring about those energies of like frustration and anger, aggression. There can be this misdirection and deceitfulness that comes with Mars. This violence, something that comes with Mars. But it's the energy that is behind, that calls us to rise every day. That sense of, like us versus life in a sense. That's kind of survival instinct can be with Mars, and how we energize us, our passions. Mars can even deal with like marriage and things, but it's the warrior archetype when we're talking with Mars, the active masculine energy when we're dealing with Mars. And then you talk about Scorpio, which this is a dope place for Mars to be because this is where Mars finds itself in its domicile. And that just means that when the planet is at home in the sign of Scorpio. So that means all of the qualities of Mars can be, this Scorpio supports the energies of Mars very well. Now, when we talk about Scorpio, they are the fixed water sign and they are receptive or yin in nature. And being ruled by Mars, because Scorpio is different from the other water signs, where Cancer has the assistance of the moon to kind of tune into the tides and its environment. Pisces is submerged in the cosmic oceans, but for Scorpio, they carry their water with them. It's a concentrated water. And so that gives Scorpio this strong psychic energy, this strong sense of intuition. They're a very sharp sign. You can't hide anything from Scorpio. They sense the vibrations and when things are off. The slightest change in things, attention to details. Like Scorpio will lock on to that. But I think that too, with the Mars there, like if they do happen to get stuck in the emotions, where maybe they're feeling something very deeply, really kind of getting in it, that martial energy helps them to move through that, to secrete that poison, to move that and turn it into medicine. Like Scorpio really is a great alchemizing healer type of archetype. So it's really, really strong time, especially when they're channeling that energy of love, and using that constructively. Scorpio can do some really incredible things. And then when you're talking about the 7th house in traditional astrology was known as the setting house, and this is one of the angular houses. This is where the descendant live, which is opposite the ascendant. Dealing with like other people, which is one of the topics of this house. Is other people, partners, marriage, relationships, just sort of one-on-one relationships in general. And then this can deal with also themes of living abroad can come up in this house as well. So when you're working with this placement, a couple of things to consider. You would have a Taurus rising by whole sign, and you don't have to look too far to see who rules this house because Mars is responsible for this house, and it's going to import the themes of the 12th house into this house, which deals with any sort of loss, any sort of long-term illnesses, confinement, enemies, things like that. So one thing that I would talk about with this energy right off the bat is one, again, look to see when we're working with the malefics and the benefics, you want to see whether you have a day or a night chart, because that's again going to show whether Mars is the most malefic or if it's going to be the most constructive. And so again, in a night chart is going to be very constructive, and a day chart is going to be more malefic. And so I would pay attention to, especially with Scorpio, if you have any sort of strong feelings around relationship. I would say, especially we're talking about grudges, we're talking about any sort of if you find yourself just reliving yourself in different situations and having those strong feelings come up. Mars in Scorpio needs to move through that, because all that's going to do is permeate into your other relationships and muck that up. Because especially if you're not dealing with certain things, you're keeping things pent up. That's not Mars. Mars, I find, really starts to act up when it is being held back or restrained in some type of way. And I would, this would maybe be something where if you do find that, having that sort of like seventh house can be like therapist, as far as like maybe helping you move through, again, whatever problems in any sort of relationships that we happen to have in life, whether you're dealing with themes of like enemies, whether you're maybe taking care of someone who has like maybe a long-term illness, and maybe some sort of like terminal illness, maybe something that is, generally that's just taking a lot out of you, or maybe you experience that sense of loss, having those ways to move through that so that you can grow through this, because relationships are going to be a big theme for you. And I would pay attention to, really just pay attention to any sort of like themes that come up, as far as like maybe any sort of, like with Scorpio, maybe this could be like emotional manipulations. This could be where they're, whatever that might look like. Pay attention to those signs, and that might be where people, with Mars being in the seventh, may be where other people are doing these behaviors, and it's not to excuse them from doing this, but to help you to stand up for yourself more. That might be something where you're used to maybe just kind of capitulating, and now, but after, you can only take so much, and I think that would be something, and again, this is not going to be for everyone, I'm just speaking very generally here, but that would just be something I would definitely kind of keep an eye on there as well, just because of that. Marriage could be a very important thing. That might be something that you feel very strongly, feel kind of maybe driven to. Maybe that's something that's a bit of a challenge for you. Again, maybe if this is a day chart, maybe there's this, it's finding someone that will have that sort of intimacy, possibly. That might be where there's something there, some sort of like disconnect there. Maybe, maybe there could be whatever that might be. So that may be where learning how to, what's your relationship style, that might be, or attachment style. That might even be something that you want to explore with this placement as well, and maybe even see if there are certain attachment styles that you're attracted to. That could be, again, very, very beneficial, I would think, because Mars is opposing that ascendant, so there's going to be this conversation, especially depending if it's in a tight degree aspect, that's going to be a very kind of prevalent thing, that you versus other, and how to reconcile the two, because they're, whether it be by whole sign or again by aspect, that's going to be a conversation that's going to be a prevalent one, throughout your life there. But it's not going to be just all just like, negative with Mars. There are going to be Mars will have some nice aspects that'll come through with it. So there will be those times. I could see this as a very loyal Mars. One that finding a partner that can help you move through those tough times as well. Where you both like are supporting one another, where there's that interdependence. That could be something where learning how to work with Mars, even whether no matter where it happens to be, learning how to work with Mars can really help, again, to build those, really, because it's in those kind of tougher ones where we've learned things that we don't like, that we can find and refine those things in the relationships that we do, and make those stronger and make those more prevalent in our lives. So just pay attention to, again, how much you give of yourself, how much of your energy that is, because sometimes too we can, if we don't allow ourselves time for ourselves, that can create this sense of resentment, and those sort of like feelings and emotions. I think that's something, and especially in like an earth rising sign, I think can maybe store a lot before. I think especially maybe with like a Taurus rising, can maybe store a lot and have a lot of patience before there gets to a breaking point, and then the breaking point is disproportional to the crime. So that might be, again, just something to pay attention to. Have people who can help you to, if that's something that you just have trouble with in general, maybe just kind of like feeling through the emotions, having someone to help you to move through that, if that is something that comes up. But And I would say, if you just as a sidebar, if you do find yourself having trouble with martial things, thinking about a relationship, find yourself stuck in a rut, Mars rules like bitter taste. So get yourself some like really dark chocolate when you find yourself like on one and just like reminiscing about a thing. I remember having the moon was in Scorpio. I was feeling a lot. And I bought, yeah, you buy it. I went to buy some, and I know what dark chocolate tastes like, but this one was like particularly bitter. It's so much so that like not that I forgot, but it pulled me out of my feelings and into my taste buds. And then when I got out of my taste buds, I realized what I was feeling is just like, okay, you know what? I can't keep feeling like this. How can I move on from that? And that's where I think again that Scorpio can, and I find that this is not just going to be you working through your stuff. This is going to be maybe even you helping others go through their things. Maybe you have to be the more grounded one, the one that has to be maybe a little aggressive and tell people like, yo, you can't stop that. So, because I find with like even when we're talking 12th house themes, this is not just usually like your 12th house transit. This is going to be the 12th house ones that are going on around you too, and maybe again people see you as a very grounded source. So those would be some things I would just kind of generally talk about with this sort of placement. You definitely need the rest of the chart to get a better idea of how this is looking. But if you have this placement or know someone who's working with this placement, down in the description box, or in the description box, you can't do that. In the comment, what you can do is leave a comment. Tell us how this is manifested, if you feel comfortable, how you've been working with those energies. And if that's something that you want to explore more, kind of dig into this placement, maybe you do have a date chart and relationships have been challenging. Maybe this can help kind of see the rest of the chart to kind of get some eyes and figure out how to alleviate that. What are some themes that maybe you can kind of focus on? Maybe you need to spend a little more time alone, take a little more time to yourself, and kind of figure out what's been going on there. Not make, because that could be, that's a whole other thing that I could kind of get into there, but. But if that's something that you want to explore more, maybe you want to, because I do a number of things. If you want to find out like a certain election, or find out any of the services that I provide, there's an email down in the description box below, and we can definitely go over all of that. And I'll have the prices for you and all of those things. And if you, two more things, if you want to see what's going on with the lunar astrology, there is a playlist that's going to be that's called the Lunar Shenanigans, and it's just talking about what sign, just again all the moon astrology, what sign it's in, what phase it's in, when it's going void, of course, what aspects it's forming, how that energy is looking for that day. So, and then there's one for the sun and the other traditional planets, and it's just talking about what signs, similar to the moon, what signs they're in, what aspects they're forming, and how to work with those places, which signs may be experiencing this more potently in their chart, and how to work with those energies most practically. So that's available for you there. But until next time, stay mindful out there, keep raising that vibration through the roof, and I will catch you on the next one. Later.